The 2023-24 Premier League is just a few weeks away. The excitement's beginning to surface, football YouTubers are making their predictions for the season, and I figured I'd take this time to tell you, yes, that be you over there, with the face, as to why your favorite team won't win the 2023-24 Premier League. Well, at least why 19 of the 20 teams in it aren't winning. Much like the Highlander, there can be only one. Anyways, let's get to it. Now I know everyone and their mother already does not want you all winning any sort of accolades after seeing those hideous away kits of yours. And this is without us even getting into the damage that AFTV has done to a generation of football fans. But that's not the reason why you won't win the Premier League this year. See, it took you lot 5+ years to convince notorious cheapskate and literal scumbag Stan Kroenke to seriously spend money on your club to go after a title. And the moment that checkbook has opened, you all willingly chose to pay $65 million for Kai Havertz. Not even spending way too much money on a very good player like Declan Rice is going to be able to save you all from folding like accordions by March. You're all headed in the right direction. There's some decent players there now that you've brought on board, you have ownership that's willing to spend money when the situation calls for it, but let's be realistic about your chances. Because your current manager is a European competitions merchant. It's in his nature. And therefore, his focus is going to be on the shiny new Europa Conference League trophy he hasn't won yet instead of the Premier League for the season. Also, it's going to be a busier season compared to last year with more fixtures, and while you punched above your weight last season, I don't think you have the capacity and manpower to break through the glass ceiling of this league just yet. I'm feeling another 7th place finish for you, but hey, I don't think anyone would be that surprised if you all end up walking away with the Europa Conference League title, and Unai Emery is yet again at the height of his powers in continental competitions. The firing of Gary O'Neill may have shocked some people, given that you managed to survive in the Prem last season, but the optics don't look all that great when out of the 7 wins you got after the World Cup break, 3 of them were against the teams that got relegated last season. Now, I do think you have a decent young manager in Andoni Iraola coming in, and you did punch above your weight last season when everyone and their mother thought you were going right back down to the championship. However, one of your owners already won a title in the US this year with the NHL's Vegas Golden Knights. By that virtue, you all shouldn't have anything to do with the Premier League title and are most likely to be fighting at the lower mid-table rather than being anywhere near the title hunt. But to me, I don't think you're going to end up being relegated this time around either. If I were a predictions-making man, you'd probably end up somewhere between 14th and 16th. 16th! The Ivan Toney ban alone until late January of next year is gonna make sure the whole winning the Prem thing is a distant pipe dream for you all. Ioane Wissa might surprise a few people, and I think Brian Mbeumo will do his best to step up, but I just don't think your team has a key player that can replicate Tony's numbers from last season prior to his suspension. But if we're being honest with each other right now,
the vibes are f***ed up here, guys. I don't exactly know what's going on in this town.
Which yes, I get that it's unfair to the fan base as they have no control over that, but the optics just don't look good, you know? On the bright side, your team's recruitment strategy and use of analytics has been one of the key reasons why you've been able to surprise many pundits throughout the last 2 years and remain in the Premier League. I don't expect that part to change, but challenging for a title with your best striker missing half the season is just not happening. For the first time since the early 80s, you actually have some semblance of expectations on you. Props on managing to surprise the living hell out of everybody last season, but I just don't think you're ready to be the next Leicester City type of story by winning the league. Especially this season, given all the midweek traveling you'll have to do for Europa League games. I do think you have it in you to end up between 5th and 7th place, but you're gonna need to get the most out of the guys you have on the roster and from your transfer business over the summer. Knowing the way you all scout though, Adrian Mazilu is probably going to turn out to be a world-class winger in 2 seasons, and Evan Ferguson is probably getting 15 goals this year. You'll be just fine. Quick side note, thank you for taking Kaoru Mitoma away from the J-League. I've seen Kawasaki Frontale win enough titles to last me an entire lifetime, so the less talent they have there helping them do that, the better. Oh hey, you guys are back. I also see that your team is playing the equivalent of Samba football in these Lancashire streets, but I do admit it caught me by surprise. Mainly because Vincent Kompany is Belgian and the last person on the planet I'd ever expect to manage a side that actually plays exciting football. Unfortunately, you can't win the Premier League based on your social media team's presence or via your own superfans gassing you up at every given opportunity. Furthermore, ordering the equivalent of Ryan Reynolds from Coles as a minority owner isn't the flex you all think it is. Don't get me wrong, it has a Midwestern United States charm to it, but given JJ Watt's former profession, most of what you are all going to get out of this whole affair is a bunch of Americans bandwagoning your club and unironically calling the sport soccer. Last season, you lot spent enough money in one transfer window to outdo 4 different leagues' transfer window spending combined. And you did all of that just to come in 12th place.
Ratio L, you fell off.
Even with Energia Universal merchant Mauricio Pochettino in charge, asking him to get your roster to get its collective shit together so you might end up in the top 4 again is a big ask. Also, don't be surprised if the FFP comes knocking in the next 2 to 3 years with all of the creative accounting classes you've been taking along with Saudi Arabia during this offseason, all while sending players over to their league. One more thing, Todd Boehly is one of the owners of the Los Angeles Dodgers in the MLB, and I'm gonna be honest, I just wish all sorts of terrible things happened to you all by proxy of that fact alone. Every time I watch your club play at home, it feels like you managed to give every big team in the Premier League a hard time. Selhurst Park is an atmosphere unlike many within football as a whole. You make life difficult for every single team that has to come into your house, and as a neutral, I can appreciate that. But then you go on the road and look like eagles who have their wings clipped. It's just an absolute roller coaster of emotions, and unfortunately, that roller coaster isn't getting you to the title by any stretch of the imagination. I do really like the Jefferson Lerma signing, so props to you all on that. Also, please do not overwork that man to death. How are you still here? Your team has spent $750 million in the past 5 years to just hang around the mid-table or be on the brink of relegation. The amount of managers and players you've all managed to run out of your club is enough to where I can make a whole video out of this, and your current roster doesn't inspire any confidence in me whatsoever that this trend will change. You're slow, you're old, and you're very much a nostalgia act. You're not anywhere near contention to actually win any sort of silverware now or any time in the next 5 years. Hell, the 3rd time might be the charm here when it comes to being on the relegation chopping block, but for your sake, you'd better hope you can stay up. Because that new stadium and the mountain of debt you all have isn't paying for itself on an EFL championship budget. You all finished a lot higher in the table last season than what I was expecting. Mitrovic proved that he can have a decent season when he's got a manager that actually is willing to play to his strengths. Willian didn't fully embarrass himself. João Palhinha was an inspired piece of business. Overall, not too shabby for a squad that some people expected to go back down to the championship. Oh, your owner has been so busy worrying about filling up Wembley Stadium for his wrestling company's Big England show to where he almost forgot to find Mitrovic's replacement before he leaves your club for good. But I guess if Raul Jimenez finds his form again, it's not a bad replacement by any stretch.
Someone said it, not me, innit?
Suddenly, their league making offers for TK's best striker and their manager begins to make a whole lot more sense. The whole losing Jude Bellingham to Real Madrid thing that you all took during this offseason. I'm sure it has to hurt, especially since now Real Madrid is basically forcing you to experiment with Trent Alexander-Arnold playing in your midfield for the 2nd year running. Speaking of which, you aren't going to have any midfielders left when the Saudis are finished with you at this rate. And yes, I'm saying this even knowing that you brought in Alexis McAllister and Dominic Sloboslai. I'm half expecting them to be on a plane to Jeddah by mid-August at this rate. Is this what happens when you give Jurgen Klopp an 8th year in your club? We're in uncharted territory here, and I definitely don't believe it makes for a Premier League champion. I'll say it if no one has the guts to do it. Kenilworth Road is awesome. The fact your ground is literally right in the neighborhood where you play and its connection to the local community is a breath of fresh air at this level of the game. The imagery alone of some of these big clubs in England having to come and play on your ground should be worth the admission price alone. I'm just far more concerned that you all picked the wrong scouting package on Football Manager during the course of this transfer window. Lads, you're a Premier League team now. Even if it's only for a season like a lot of the pundits are predicting.
Start acting like it.
Because personally, I'd love to see your story keep going at the biggest stage possible, rather than have you all be the next Norwich City. Or Watford. Let's not mince any words and talk about the giant elephant in the room. Most of us who aren't City fans have already resigned ourselves to the fact that you're going to get away from at least 113 FFP charges.
The FTR match, I saw
accusations!
These are not accusations, this is
False accusations!
But all we need is just one of those charges to stick. In fact, we're kind of just really crossing our fingers on that. But in case those charges don't stick, look, you all already won just about everything last season. For the sake of all football, take a break. Allow the cyborg masquerading as a human being that you have playing at striker to have a malfunction in his system that keeps him out of play for a few months. Maybe start in the most inconsistent fashion possible and get a few draws or losses at the beginning of the year, kind of like how you did this year. Just anything but a title win. I'm not going to waste any more time than I have to on you because we all have a pretty solid idea of how this season's gonna go. You're gonna continue to scream at the Glazers to get out of your club, all while simping for Qatari ownership to finally come in and make you as rich as your crosstown rivals. You're gonna have a couple of games where you look like world beaters. Then, you're gonna shit the bed in a couple of games that you should be winning. That's likely gonna be around the 16 game in the Champions League. You might win a Carabao Cup again in the process, but at the end of it all, you're gonna end up somewhere between 2nd and 7th. Which is exactly the same cycle you've been stuck in for the last decade. Good, but just not good enough. That said, Erik ten Hag has already managed to get way more from your roster than a lot of people in recent years. Let him cook. So, it's your first Champions League campaign in a while, and you all somehow did it without spending the billions of dollars that your Saudi sugar daddies have on reserve for you all.
Never mind that. Here comes Mungo.
Look, Sandro Tonali is an inspired signing, and along with the leadership and absolute quality that Bruno Guimarães brings to your team, that midfield is going to be an absolute nightmare for defenses to deal with. But this isn't your year in the Premier League. Not yet. I don't think all the pieces are there for winning the trophy, and the busier schedule is going to show as much. Also, I do think Alexander Isak needs another year at this level to become the elite striker everyone's expecting him to be. However, I do think that this is the year where you all finally win some sort of domestic title for the first time in 69 years.
Nice.
So you got back to the Prem last season and decided full-fledged chaos was going to be your brand.
I need chaos. Chaos! All the chaos there is in this cursed land.
Creating high-key drama plus panic attacks within your collective fanbase, it's definitely a way of making your mark after returning to the top tier of English football from a 23-year absence. But much like Crystal Palace, you're absolutely allergic to winning games on the road. Even with a core of great young players, you don't have the pedigree to win a league. I'm not going to be surprised if you end up getting dragged into another relegation battle. But with all of that said, I want you all to get this through your heads. You had better stay up. See, you took Gustavo Scarpa and Danilo from me. If you get relegated with those two on your roster, I swear to God, I will find your owner and shove my foot so far up his ass. The Blades. Paul Heckingbottom has done a fantastic job in coaching you back to the dance, and the duo of Iliman Ndiaye and Oli McBurney were big contributors during that whole process with the goals that they scored. But as pleasant of a surprise as it is to see you back, to me, the team just isn't there right now to survive a relegation battle, let alone even have a chance at winning the Prem.
Here we go.
The only bit of limelight you're going to get all season long before you get relegated down to the championship is for your cameo appearances on season 2 of Welcome to Wrexham. Oh, it'd be easy to just say you're not winning squat because you're Spurs and leave it at that, but no, I've got things to say to you all. First, Ange Postecoglou is a manager you all should hang on to for dear life, as he's proven himself on every managerial job he's taken thus far. In an ideal world, he should be given the time and patience to build the team in his image and to be given a shot to make things happen for your club over the next few years. Which means that in reality, he's probably getting fired by January. Why, you ask? Because unfortunately, your owner can't make up his mind on whether he sells Harry Kane or lets him stay. You basically wasted Son Heung-min's prime. You're somehow going to make Richarlison into an even bigger meme. And oh yeah, your owner is an insufferable git. Congratulations, you all have turned what would have been a sackable season for David Moyes last year and turned it into a positive by winning the League One equivalent of an European title. Unfortunately, a lot of the same issues from last season are still there, and you also sold your best player for 9 figures over to Arsenal. Although even if you do find Rice's replacement and conduct your business in a concise and smart manner,
Big man thing, yeah? It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
that's still not going to be enough to touch the top 6, let alone get anywhere near a Premier League title. I reckon you'll do well in Europa, but that's pretty much it.
You guys are still here.
Look, if this was Liga Portugal, you'd be the shoo-in favorites for a championship. God knows you have enough players from there to be able to register for that league with no problems whatsoever. But the fact is, you all just aren't inspiring to get anywhere near a title, let alone a top half finish with how inconsistent you were all of last season. Hell, Ruben Neves deciding to leave you all for Saudi Arabia is the equivalent of the canary in a coal mine. At best, it's a bottom half finish for you all. At worst, get ready to yet again grace the EFL Championship with your presence. Alright, that just about wraps it all up. You made it to the end, congratulations. Or you skipped all the way here too, but that's fine, it is what it is. I should probably mention this video is meant to be in good fun, and most likely a couple things within it will likely end up with me having egg on my face by May. Or much earlier than that. We'll see how it goes, but again, I just wanted to take the time to, thank you for watching the video. I know it's a little bit different from my usual FM23 content. For those who are here for that sort of content, don't worry, we'll have another video next week regarding that. It'll most likely be the 4th episode of the Alta IF series that I've been doing. But until then, if you did enjoy this video though, I would appreciate it if you gave it a like and the good old subscribe button treatment if you're not subscribed just yet. I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We are a lot closer to that goal than even I was expecting at this juncture, so any support on that would be sincerely appreciated. That said, thank you again for checking out the video. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.